Welcome to another edition of the Willie Bragg Show. I am Willie Bragg, and we have back again Angie Moon, who's a friend of the show.
Hello.
Hello, welcome back, Angie. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. So life's been pretty good since I last spoke to you. I've gotten a job, so I'm not just writing about classic rock full time anymore. So that's nice. It's good to have extra money. Yeah, book sales are going pretty well. I do have a special promotion for this month and next month. So next month is my birthday month. So I was born August 1st. And I'm offering to anybody that donates to me via PayPal or Patreon, I will be adding a Stripe link as well soon. Basically, if you donate any money to me, you get a free copy of the ebook. So it's basically pay what you can for the ebook. So whatever you think it's worth, £1, €1, $1 or more. And yeah, you get a copy of the ebook, Crime of the Century, a true crime and rock and roll book, nonfiction, over 22 stories about how classic rock and true crime have collided.
All right, and I'm going to put on the link right now for your link for everybody. Just show everybody your page real quick, and
of course, I have to mention that if you buy a book directly from me, I'll sign it. I'll even personalize it if you like. Just let me know in the box there. And I can also get my cat to sign it because I do have a special ink pad for cats to make their paw print on a piece of paper, and it's pretty cool. So I've done that for a few people, and they all appreciate it. So yeah, that's my cat Bowie in the picture there.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And this is her blog here, The Diversity of Classic Rock by Angie Moon. I'm going to put down the link and all her information on the description box below. Shortly after I do this, after the video's up. So anyway, do follow her when you get a chance. And let me go ahead and put this down. And let's see. Let me go ahead and put this link up here. Okay. Hold on a second.
Yeah, so it's on the same page. It's just the Buy the Crime of the Century link. So it's just my general page. Yeah, it has the place to buy the regular price ebook. So if you do want to pay the full £7 for the ebook, you are more than welcome to. I prefer it directly through me because I get the money straight away and I don't have to wait on a royalty check. And those royalty checks can take months to arrive.
Yeah, here we go. All right, and there we go. And I'll scroll it down real quick. All right, there we go. As I said, I'll put down the link. When we're done here with the video. That's what I usually do. At the end of show when I have guests on and all that, so or any additional information. So anyway, so you live in the UK. So before we get to the election, do a little bit of a background about your situation yourself, and then we'll touch into the UK election.
Yeah, I didn't get to say this before, but I just wanted to thank you so much for your support of, my work and having me on your show. But anyway, to answer your question there about my background and everything. So I'm originally from Chicago, and I've moved around a lot throughout my life because my dad just kept changing jobs. And then I having moved around a lot, I wanted to move around too and, find the best place for me. So I grew up in the Chicagoland area, and I've spent about half my life there. A little under that probably now at this point. And then I've lived in Texas, I've lived in Florida. So that was all during my teenage years. And then I moved to Toronto and I lived there for a couple of years. That was between the ages of 17 and 18. And then I moved back to the Chicagoland area. And then I kind of got sick of, being in the US. I really wanted to get out of the US. So then I went to Ireland to study abroad. And that's where I met my husband. So after 3 years of dating, we got married in July of 2017. So we got married right after we didn't get married. We got engaged right after the election, then got married as soon as we could. In Ireland, it's a bit lengthy of a process if you're marrying a foreigner, but that's the way things are there. A lot of things are very slow. But anyway, eventually I got my citizenship in Ireland. So I'm an Irish citizen and an American citizen. And my husband got a job at a university in the UK, and yeah, he works at the university. And I came over once I got my Irish citizenship. And Irish people, it's pretty great to be an Irish citizen because you get the right to live anywhere in the EU, and you also get the right to live in the UK, which is really great because I did not want to move to mainland Europe because I get anxious enough in English as it is. So imagine adding another language there. That would be quite terrifying for me.
Yeah, I've heard. I've heard a lot of good things about certain places in Europe to move to. Like, I'm going to retire in less than 7 years, and I thought about if I lived abroad, I seriously considered living in Portugal because I heard that the cost of living is super low in Portugal, and they had, of course, they have universal health care as they do, pretty much everywhere in Europe. Some universal health care systems are better than others. We do know that.
Yeah, Ireland's is awful and is a total joke. And I've probably told so many stories about my hysterectomy and how much of a battle it was to get one. So like I was going through my chronic pain starting like when lockdown happened. I was, starting to get chronic pain again. I always had really bad period pain, but this was just chronic because it would happen not just during my period, but at unpredictable times throughout the month. I was just basically rendered disabled because of it. And I never got any disability benefit. They wouldn't give that to me, but because they wouldn't diagnose me. So I had no idea why I was in pain, but I suspect it was something like endometriosis. But anyway, it took me, ages to get in contact with my doctor just because of the pandemic and how overloaded the doctors were already in Ireland prior to that. Add a pandemic on top of that, it's just a complete shit show. But anyway, I got to see a doctor. I talked about it. They said, yeah, we'll try to figure out your birth control, just stay on it for the time being. And, they sent me for scans. Then, that took a while to, get, even though I was paying for that privately, and private system's supposed to have less wait time than public system, but and then I saw a private gynecologist. He approved me for a hysterectomy on the first try, which I'm pretty impressed with that because that's very difficult, especially for a woman in her I'm not early 20s, late 20s. So I was 28 at that time. And then I got my hysterectomy in Lithuania because the waiting times were too long in Ireland for the public system. And then on the private system, it was very expensive at €8,000 for the operation. We didn't have any insurance. So, we were just stuck with the public system if you wanted it for free. And there's years and years of wait for that. So we chose Lithuania. Surgery was under €3,000. And we got that reimbursed thanks to EU, some sort of directive for getting healthcare abroad. So thankfully I got that before I came to England because I've heard the NHS is not as good as it used to be. Let's just say that.
Well, let's hope that the new government will not try to tamper with it in a negative way. Let's hope that they will properly fund the NHS and make it as originally was intended to be in 1948. Because
the saddest thing is Labour haven't been socialist in so many decades. So like the 90s with New Labour, but all these problems are starting really early on. I remember I actually talked about this with you on Facebook. I mentioned in the comment. Basically, Ray Davis in his book X-Ray, he had a whole rant about how the 60s really weren't what it was cracked up to be. And he said that Harold Wilson was like, a total sellout and like total establishment type. And, the problems in the UK, they started decades and decades ago. Like the 60s seemed like a swinging party, and maybe it was. And then people just lost everything by the end of the decade. The 70s was not a great time economically in this country.
But comparing Harold Wilson to, let's say, Tony Blair, I mean, that's
it's very different because in the 60s, I mean, they had grants to go to university. University was completely free. And then, of course, in the 90s, everything changed. They started adding tuition fees. Tuition fees skyrocketed, from what I've heard. I've only lived in this country for a year, but I've spoken to people from here. I have a lot of friends from here, so.
And it was introduced under Blair's government, the tuition fees. Ironically, it was still relatively free under Thatcher. That was the weird thing.
Yes, that is very weird. Like, that's the thing. Like, I think a lot of these political things happen in America first before coming to England. and like Europe as well. I think America's very ahead of the curve when it comes to moving rightward, and the Overton window's just shifted so far to the right in the U.S., and it's shifting further to the right here in the U.K. I mean, I don't trust Labour to do a good job with the NHS. I'm really, really worried. That's definitely something that worries me. I mean, I don't want to. I left America because of the crappy healthcare system over there and how expensive everything is. You can get bankrupted with a medical emergency, but here I'm fearing that that's the future. And I just wish that people in the UK would listen to Americans when it comes to, for-profit healthcare. It's a nightmare. It's, to put it in terms of British people would understand, it's like having the Cray twins run healthcare. You don't want that.
Somebody that in my high school contacted me and told me, lives in Toronto, told me that I asked him about the healthcare system. His wife is Canadian. Asked him about the healthcare system, and he said he kind of likes it, but he's a little worried that Canada's system is being kind of Americanized too. So everybody's trying to America tends
everywhere.
They tend to export a lot of bad ideas. I like and we were talking about liberalism, the PC culture and everything prior to the show. I used to be a smoker, and when I was a smoker when I went to the UK in 2006. And I'll tell you a little story before we get to the meat and potatoes of this subject. I was when I got on the train, I flew to Gatwick, got on the train at the Victoria Express. And there were people smoking on the train. On their way to work, drinking on the train on their way to work. I was like, I love this country already. And there were people that were smoking everywhere that you just did not see in the United States. And I was just like, this society is not as prudish as it is in the United States. And I was kind of impressed by that, just that alone.
It's still very true here. Like, one interesting thing is, ever since getting prescribed medical marijuana, nobody cares. I've never had any person scold me for just vaping my weed outside. Like, nobody cares at all.
Well, when I came back to the States, I was kind of depressed, because I left a country that had an NHS, a more generous welfare state than the United States, a country that did not have a death penalty, a country that had a more socially liberal attitude in our society compared to the United States. I mean, so much so that there was like a sex shop right across the street from a church. I mean, you would never ever see that in the United States. Here, everybody be clutching their pearls in the United States. And then here in America, it was just like I came back to what I call a right-wing cesspool. And I really literally did not want to fly back to the States. I was depressed for the next month when I came back from England, because I really love my stay in England. I love my 11 hours in Paris too when I was there that week. I did not want to come back because I know that the grass is greener on the other side, but for what I noticed, I said to myself, I mean, I could literally live here. I mean, but it's expensive. So that was the downside. So
that's the crazy thing. It's not as expensive here. Like, I see so many Americans coming here and being like, everything's so much cheaper. Actually, like, I spoke to some Canadian expats and they were like, yeah, everything's so cheap here in England compared to Toronto. Toronto's insanely expensive now. I'm thinking like Toronto has to be on par with like LA, San Francisco, and New York. But anyway, something I thought of, like, when you were talking about like America exporting, right-wing stuff, I was like, the only good thing America exports is popular culture. And even then, that depends. But like, great old movies, great music, especially like rock and roll. And then the bad export, extremism politically. It's awful.
Like, for example, when I came back from the UK, they started doing the smoking bans like they have here in the United States. And, I'm a little more libertarian on that issue. She got smoking areas, it's fine, and I'm not even really a smoker anymore, but I'm just saying, I just think if it wasn't broke, don't fix it.
I think smoking bans, I mean, like, as far as like indoors, I could see it as like a workers' rights thing. Like, I can only imagine how bad the lung cancer rates must have been for like casino dealers in Vegas, or like people who work in bars where there's a lot of smoking. Like, you know, I just wish there were maybe like perhaps some indoor venues where people could smoke that are licensed for that, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that like there's smoking areas inside the airports after you get through security. Here in Europe, while in the US, you don't have that at all. Like, I remember I had a friend in Ireland who was like, I had to go hours and hours without a cigarette, and it was miserable.
Yeah, my friend that I told you about, the gay pastor that lives in Montana, he's a smoker, and he's got family in Norway, and so he did a layover flight in Copenhagen, and there was like a smoking area you could go to at the airport, and they it's like that's non-existent pretty much anywhere here in the U.S. So in some ways. In some ways, some things are kind of left in sort of an older way over there, depending where you're at and everything. And he was in England. He went to a wedding. He and his husband went to a wedding in Norway last month, and they spent a week in England, and on their way back, and they do have the smoking bans, but they don't really enforce it the way they still kind of don't enforce it the way they do here in the United States, for what he told me. So, he was at the train station, and he said he could smoke in an area where the employees were smoking and they might not say anything. And so that's what he did. That's what he was telling me about that. So
like vaping is huge here, actually. Like that's something that's even bigger than smoking now. Like vaping it's insane. And then I saw on a walk, somebody just dropped like a tin of nicotine pouches. And I'm like, wait, that's also a big thing here too. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Never got into smoking tobacco. I never smoked tobacco in my life.
No.
So
26 years, but I quit. So, but anyway, so when you moved to the UK, just when you voted yesterday, now what was it like as far as voting compared to?
Oh, okay. So the one downside of voting here compared to the US is that we don't get a little cute "I voted" sticker. I kind of miss that. Like, I'd love to have that again in the US, even though I only voted once in the US, because each time there was a presidential election, I was outside of the US. So I was living in Toronto when Obama was reelected in 2012. So I didn't vote. And then in 2016, I was in Ireland, and I tried to vote, but there's so many, barriers, and it's like crossing a field of lasers just trying to vote from overseas in the US. So like, I don't think it was counted, but I did try to vote for Jill Stein in 2016.
That was my vote.
But yeah. I mean, it didn't matter. I was registered in Illinois, so that's a solid blue state. So like, I wasn't too concerned, and I just would not. I couldn't live with myself if I voted for Hillary or Biden. I didn't vote in 2020 because I was living in Ireland. So I've lived most of my adult life actually outside the US for a few years. It's crazy to think about that.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I voted in every presidential election, every midterm. I miss a primary here and I miss a primary there. And 50-50 on municipal elections in here in the United States. But so the polling stations, I was told that they still do the old-fashioned piece of paper. You take a pen or a marker, you mark it.
Yes.
That's the way they still do it?
Yes, so it's still done on paper, and the great thing about polling stations is there's a bunch of them here, and it's the same way in Ireland. They're all over, they're within people's neighborhoods, easily able to walk to. So like the polling station for me was less than a 10-minute walk from my house, probably closer to like 5 minutes, and there was like no wait there. Like, you were in and out in 5 minutes, and it's the same way in Ireland as well. And the polls are open until 10 p.m. So, and with no wait time, it's like, yeah, you don't really have an excuse. So they also, kind of enforce, and like when you move into a house, they send you mail straight away. and they ask you to register to vote. So they make sure they get people registered here. You do have to bring a voter ID, which I think I can understand that, but I'm okay with it as long as IDs are free. Yeah.
I don't have a problem with the ID as long as they make it easy for people to vote. And the problem in the United States is they try to make it as difficult as possible for people to vote. They don't want people to vote, and within the duopoly. And again, I don't like the Democrats and I don't like the Republicans, but with regard to Republicans, their problem is that they try to make it extremely difficult to vote because they're scared that a bunch of black and brown people are going to vote them out of office or what have you. And my answer to them is, the Republicans should come up with less shitty policies if that's their big concern. But I would say the same thing.
Same with Democrats.
Yeah, that you took the words right out of my mouth. Exactly. They both should come up with shitty policies, and not just for black and brown people, but for everybody. They should be. You should always run on good policies that's going to be good for all people. It's going to benefit everybody in our society, and
absolutely
and everybody out of poverty. But that's my old universal liberal, outdated attitudes that gets poo-pooed by some who call themselves progressives too. So,
here's something like that's really cool about the UK. So in the US, I grew up in the US, so I was there, until I was 17. Then I moved to Canada, but it's the same way in Canada too as the US, I believe. But in the US, you can only vote in elections if you're a US citizen. I thought it was that way, all over the world. I thought, okay, that has to be the norm, when no, actually it isn't. So across Europe, most countries in Europe do allow foreign nationals to vote in certain elections. So it might be local elections, it might be European Parliament elections or things like that if you're in an EU country. Like in Ireland, you can vote in an EU Parliament election if you're an EU citizen, but you can vote in a local election and even run in a local election even if you're not a citizen, if you're just resident in the country. So that's pretty cool. Like, I actually wasn't registered to vote at all in Ireland for that because I didn't know that you could, and I didn't want to bother registering. I should have, because maybe I should have gotten more, involved in that. But anyway, what's done is done. But here in the UK, not just British citizens can vote for Parliament. So I knew some Canadians that were registered to vote. So yeah, Canadians can vote for like MPs. Also other Commonwealth countries, so not just Canada, but Australians, people from New Zealand, people from India and Pakistan, I believe, possibly Bangladesh, a bunch of countries in Africa, and then Irish people, of course, can vote as well because there's a common travel agreement between the UK and Ireland. I believe, I'm not sure if British citizens can vote in the Republic. I'm not sure about that one. Like for like the Dáil election. So the Dáil is Irish Parliament.
Oh yes,
yeah. But yeah, I think it's great that, people from different nationalities can vote, because, I mean, we all pay taxes, regardless if we're citizens or not. So, the US is all about no taxation without representation. And then it's like, okay, if you're a foreign national, unless you have American citizenship, you can't vote. It's interesting. I mean, it's not a hill that I would die on if I were talking in the American politics. Like, yeah, I want foreigners to vote. But, it's an interesting thought, definitely. Like,
yes,
I agree with expanding the age of vote. So, there's a debate here. Should it be lowered to 16? I support 16-year-olds voting. I mean, I graduated from secondary school when I was 16, and I think I would have been perfectly capable of voting back then. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and there are people in this country wanting to raise the voting age to 21 now, or in 25 and 26. I mean, there was actually debate about that, and it's because, again, with Republicans, and I don't want to make it about Republicans, but with Republicans, they're like, well, because the people who are 18 and 19, they tend to vote for Democrat. I mean, I'm like, that's the dumbest reason to want to raise the voting age. I'll tell the Republicans, come up with better policies, and maybe you can get those 18-year-olds to vote in your direction.
Yeah. I don't
And
want to go back to the age of old enough to kill but not for voting. I really don't want to go back to that.
no, not at all. I mean,
It's illogical.
if I ran for office, this is a vote getter, and I don't even understand why people don't campaign on this, regardless of the parties that they're running on. Like campaign to lower the drinking age back to 18 universally across.
Yes, definitely. Like, I think if you're old enough to get married, you're old enough to sign a contract, you're old enough to vote, you're old enough to be in the military. I think you're old enough to have a drink. Why not?
Exactly.
I think it just increases alcoholism in the U.S. and increases alcohol abuse because it's treated as this forbidden fruit that you're not allowed to have, and then people go crazy. I found the people who went craziest in university were always the people that grew up with the strictest parents. Those people are trained to become the best liars, the best actors, and the best rebels, I guess, too.
And I know people, or I knew people and known people who's had a kind of a casual um, um, environment growing up where there was a little bit of drinking where they allowed their kids to drink and what have you. When they're in the university, they're well behaved and responsible, and it's kind of like been there, done that, and they go on with their lives. And
Yeah, that's kind of how I was. Like, the first time I drank, I was in the Caribbean. I was 16. Nobody cared. I had just a rum and fruit punch, and that was it. And I didn't get what the whole big deal over alcohol is. It's just, yeah, whatever. It doesn't even taste good to me. It just tastes funny, and I don't like how it burns my mouth, and it makes me want to sleep. So maybe it's not my thing, but like, yeah, I don't have a problem if the parents are supervising their children and they're having it on a rare occasion. It's kind of like that one scene in Mean Girls where Regina's mom is like, oh, giving them all mocktails, and then Katie's like, there's no alcohol in this, and she's like, no, there isn't, but if you want me to give you some, it's okay if you do it in the house. I'd rather you do it here than at some party.
Kind of in a controlled environment and everything. Environment where it can things are kind of under control, where there's nothing bad that could potentially take place and all. So I mean, there's a common sense way of doing these things. So this is why in Europe there's not an alcoholism problem the way there is in the United States, because it's part of the culture. It is part of
I think the thing that's psychotic about the U.S. is that if you're underage and you're caught with alcohol, they give you a criminal record, and that's horrible. Like, I don't like this whole prison industrial complex in the U.S. I mean, in the UK they do have some private prisons here, and there's probably some prison industrial complex. I don't think it's to the extent of the U.S. But yeah, I mean, the U.S., they just want to enslave people. That's all it is. Like, the 13th Amendment, ended slavery, except as punishment for a crime, and people don't pay attention to the except as punishment for a crime bit. And people think, oh, I'm good, I'll never get caught, and then suddenly they become more liberal when they someone they know it affects them, and someone's wrongfully arrested, or there's bullshit charges or something. There's some crimes that shouldn't be crimes, like drug use. That's one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to say just legalize marijuana, but now I'm saying legalize it all. But I'll settle for legalized marijuana. But
oh, absolutely.
I
mean, I really wish they had recreational here, because the medical supply, weed's weed. I mean, it does, it calms me down, makes me feel good. But it would be nice to have a nice selection like they do at the dispensaries in the US and Canada. That's really what I want here, and just to be able to get the amounts I need, because I'm not a heavy user at all. It takes me 2 months to get through what they say is a 1 month supply. Like, I'm not a heavy user at all, so I just want to get the small amounts I need, so it's not like a big dent in my wallet every time I buy.
The last time I smoked weed was at a party in 2007 in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I went to a show, saw a band. We went to a party. One of the bands that was playing that night, everybody was hanging out, and there was a bowl passed my way, and I took a hit off the bowl, and I never had a chance, an opportunity to buy weed since then, because just for the past 15, 20 years, it's just, my life has just been like really busy, and all of a sudden, and I would love to, I just haven't had a chance to. So in fact, I know I could go and take a drive to Virginia anytime to a dispensary, and I've been thinking about doing that one of these days to buy some legal cannabis to bring home to make a cannabis lasagna. So that's the plan,
Oh,
right?
nice.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, that's something possible to do here. I mean, a lot of people do it with oils. Yeah, I just vape the flower. That's all I do. But yeah, it would be nice just to have a selection of like edibles. That would be really, really nice.
So let's go ahead and talk about this election. So let's go with out with the old and in with the new. Um, what's this line about the boss? Same boss. The
Meet the
new
new
boss.
boss, same as the old boss.
That's
The who
right.
won't get fooled again.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're referring to, of course, out with Rishi Sunak and in with Keir Starmer. And so the first Labor government in 14 years. I used to be, when I turned socialist 30 some years ago, I did so reading about the UK, the socialists in the Labour Party, the Clement Attlee government, the socialized medical system, the nationalized industries, what they call public corporations, the mixed economy that they had, and everything, and all that was torn down by the time Margaret Thatcher came along. And
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Like, you know what? Whenever I read about Britain in the 60s, it made me wish I was a British boomer. Like that just sounds like the life. You know, a British boomer from London, you know, you have good opportunities, you know, you're able to buy a house in your 20s, early 20s even, and you know, life was just a lot better than like in many ways. And I'm like, I'll say this even as a mixed, you know, bisexual woman, I still would rather live in the 60s than today. Absolutely, 100%.
yeah.
I
Well,
don't care if it gets me canceled. I'm just like, yeah, that's what I think, and I'm honest.
oh, this is a non-cancel culture environment. So, well, I mean, you know, Margaret Thatcher came along and she basically she done to Britain essentially what Ronald Reagan done to the United States, probably at a slower pace in many ways than they still managed to keep their NHS and we were talking about this prior to the show, the free university until Tony Blair ended that. So that took new labor to complete the job that I guess that she was trying to do. Of course, what brought her down was the poll tax, trying to introduce a poll tax. I guess you're familiar with the poll tax revolt of 1990, right?
Not that much. Like I've heard of it, but not in detail.
Yeah, she tried to impose a poll tax on British voters, and there was a revolt and a protest, and it turned into a violent riot because she basically ordered the law enforcement to crack down, and it really looked bad on her, and her cabinet, who was scared of her, ganged up on her and told her, you need to step down as the leader of the party. So that's kind of what happened. And then John Major became the prime minister following Margaret Thatcher. And then eventually Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, and what was his name? Oh, gosh. David Cameron, Theresa May, Boris Johnson, and Liz Truss, who was prime minister for a very short period, who was to the right of Margaret Thatcher. Let's see. And thank God she was short-lived. She would have been worse than Thatcher. And let's see. And then Rishi Sunak, and now this guy.
Starmer.
Starmer, who looks like that British chef.
Wait, Gordon Ramsay?
Yes, kind of. Well, maybe when he was a little younger, because he was a little younger when he kicked Jeremy Corbyn out of the Labour Party.
To quote Gordon Ramsay, both Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer are idiot sandwiches.
Oh gosh! And I look at Rishi Sunak and I think this is, even though he's a Tory, this is like Justin Trudeau meets Barack Obama.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah,
I could see that. Like,
yeah.
Except more of a douchebag, like not likable at all. That's the thing. Rishi Sunak's not likable. He's just not.
Yeah.
Obama, at least he had some charm. Like he was a good speaker. Like that I could I could say that's the nicest thing I'll say about Obama. Great speaker.
Well, Obama has a charming side to him. So there is that. But he turned out to be a neoliberal, corporate Democrat. Of course, I knew that from the very get go, anyway. So, but
Yeah.
a
Like
lot of people.
it took a few months into the presidency to really see what he was doing for me to be just disappointed. Like, what happened to ending the war? What happened to universal health care? What happened to those things? Like I was criticizing them even then, and I was like a teenager.
Yeah, but I think that the what saved his presidential run in 2008 was that he was not Hillary Clinton, and so that saved his campaign, and that's why they went with him, because they're like, oh no, we can't go with Hillary Clinton, because they're like, we went through this in the 1990s, we just can't do this, and she thinks that everybody loves her, and nobody loves her. So, but
No.
Rishi Sunak defeated, and you now have a Labor government, but it's not a quote unquote far left Labor government, and it might be to the
just the
right.
Tories painted red. It's basically the Tories painted red. Some people even argue that the Labours are just, Tories maybe 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, maybe. Yeah.
Well, there is a song by Billy Bragg called "From Red to Blue." I don't know if you've ever heard of that song.
I know of Billy Bragg, definitely, but
Yeah.
not the song in particular. But yeah, it sounds like the kind of message he'd send. He's definitely a socialist and definitely doesn't like either of those parties.
And if you ever watched the video, and it shows a very smug looking picture of Tony Blair in the 1980s with a kind of a mullet look and everything, with a
God
grin on his face. I think I was like, okay, I know what they're doing right there. But yeah, I mean, that's what I think of when I think of Keir Starmer, and his new Labor is basically still a continuation of the song "From Red to Blue" by Billy Bragg. I think he's going to be a continuation of the Tony Blair vision of the Labor Party. Although the Telegraph says the sky is falling and Britain is about to embark into this abysmal world of socialism because of Keir Starmer. And
every time the conservative outlets say that, I'm just like, I wish, and just the loudest, I wish. Like, I wish that what they were saying was true. I really do.
I mean, I wish that Joe Biden was half the socialist that these people claim he is, and he is not. And he is not.
I really don't get the whole Dark Brandon thing. That was the thing I didn't get. I found that obnoxious.
Oh my God, that was funny as hell. But
what is that?
As I said, Keir Starmer, it's a Labour government in the UK. When I compare Democrats and Republicans here to Tories versus Conservatives in the UK, I think that maybe overall the UK situation, choosing Labour over Tories is a slightly better deal than choosing Democrats over Republicans in the United States, because I think that the Overton window still is slightly further left in the UK overall than it is here, where even the Tories are further left than the Republicans are here overall.
Yeah.
They're not as affected by the religious right mindset. Of course, they don't have the evangelicals. I mean, if they are,
they're starting to import that from the US. Like, there's a lot of pro-life rhetoric in this country, definitely. Like some people say that, like obviously in Ireland, there were a lot of people, who would go and get abortions in the UK, and but actually, like I didn't know this until recently that, abortion isn't really legal in the UK. Like, it's weird that Europe in some places is way more conservative than the US on abortion. That's actually kind of crazy.
That is true. There's like a waiting period, like a 3-day waiting period in some countries.
Yeah, in Ireland, I think that's how long it is. But the limit is 12 weeks, which is even less than like what some Republicans suggest of 15 weeks.
Yeah, so yeah, in some ways they may have overall more liberal abortion laws, but they are a little conservative nuances in a more liberalized abortion environment in Europe. So it's kind of, it's, I've actually noticed that in the past too. So,
Hmm.
but as I said, you compare it to you compared Britain's Overton window to the United States Overton window. They still have an NHS, which we don't even have a public option. Um, you know,
And
uh,
it seems like Medicare is going to be privatized completely. That's really terrifying.
yep. Let's see. Even though Margaret Thatcher attacked the unions, they're still stronger in the UK than they've
Oh
ever
yeah.
been in the United
Oh yeah,
States.
there were lots of strikes. Like trains are often on strike here. Yeah, definitely.
Yep. The tuition fees, fuck Tony Blair on that one, but it's still cheaper to go to the university in the UK than it is in the United States.
I think so. And then in Scotland, it's free. So if you're Scottish and you live in Scotland, yeah, it's free. At least here, the student loans are, you can discharge them eventually. Like in the US, that's not an option straight up. It's just not. It's crazy.
And in Scotland, in Scotland compared to England itself, the Labour Party in Scotland's much further left than the Labour Party in England. So that's
Yeah,
another
I
thing
mean,
right
in
there.
Scotland, yeah, politics seems to be more left-leaning there. I think it's because there's a lot more poverty in Scotland than there is in England. Yeah, like in Scotland, it's yeah, a lot of areas are quite deprived, so they have to offer social programs in order to win over votes.
And Wales, I think they're further left too, right?
Yes, there's also a lot of poverty in Wales. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, but as I said, it's a situation. There's no death penalty in the UK compared to
No, no, not at all.
US and everything. So, um, given the two options, maybe
And I
maybe
think
maybe the US is a
although
slightly.
for trans rights, it's really, really bad here. But as far as gay rights, I think gay rights are still pretty decent here. I think there is a decent portion of the population that, they may have a lot of questions about trans rights, but they're totally okay with gay rights. I definitely believe there are a lot of people who think like that here.
Now, I tell you something interesting about gay rights in the UK that a lot of people would never realize is that when Britain legalized homosexuality in 1967, guess which Tory MP voted in favor of decriminalizing or legalizing homosexuality?
Who was that?
Margaret Thatcher.
That's crazy. And she was the Section 28 person. Like she put that in there.
Yeah, I tell you what happened. I think the explanation is this. I think her conservatism was literally to eliminate as much of the state out as possible, and maybe that might have been part of her thinking at the time. And I don't think she did it out of any compassion. I think she
No,
I think she did it out
selfish.
of, I mean, I don't care what her motivations were. I mean, it was the right
It's
thing
all
to
the
do.
same. I mean, yeah.
It was the right thing to do. So, sometimes the stop clock gets the right time twice a day. I would never, I would never expect Marjorie Taylor Greene to do that here in the United States. Something
Mm-mm.
equivalent to that. So there is that. Overall,
Yeah,
it's for it's,
plenty of places fly pride flags here. Like a lot of places do. Like in the U.S., I've heard a lot of pride displays being taken down. A lot of pride flags are just not being flown. At least here, I did see a decent number of them. I really do, especially in the city I live in. I definitely saw that.
yeah, no, yeah. Now, so in America, some people within the LGBTQ community were complaining about the commercialization of the of of Pride Month, and there was that what they call rainbow capitalism, and that's something to be criticized right there.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
but the right wing getting all triggered because they see a damn rainbow flag. It's like I was like, my gosh, get over it. It's 1 month a year. Nobody's even asking. Nobody's forcing straight conservatives to go and to pride events and share it like it's the most wonderful thing ever. You don't have to do that.
They can go watch sports at home, or have a barbecue at home, or do what they normally do. What do they normally do every summer? I don't know.
Yeah,
Go spend time with your family.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, I'm a straight guy. I mean, and I the only reason I think about it is because the right-wing people in the United States likes to remind me of it being Pride Month. And I'm okay with Pride Month, by the way. But but that's the only reason it pops up in my mind a lot, because I hear a lot of right-wing people moaning and groaning about it. I'm like, and I would hardly think about it otherwise than to wish my friends in the LGBTQ community to have a happy Pride Month.
And there wouldn't be a need for a Pride Month if LGBT people weren't oppressed for so freaking long. Like the thing that I noticed is that, if you look at the civil rights timeline, if you look at the gay liberation timeline, it's all the same. Like, all these big events happening right around the same time on each side.
Yeah.
Like, if people are going to say, hey, you can't tell black people to get over slavery, well, you can't tell gay people to get over being jailed historically and being castrated historically.
Exactly, and it all connects and everything like that. And it's just people, people, the right wing like to put out there, they like to accuse the disenfranchised of having a victim mentality, but they do too. That what I call the conservative victim card.
War on Christmas.
Yeah. I mean, the war on Easter, what have you. I go to midnight night mass every year. I mean, nobody stopped me from entering entering the church. Nobody slapped the wafer out of my hands when the priest handed it to me, or forbid me to sip from the chalice or anything like that. I mean, nobody stopped me from, nobody stops me, when I go to an Easter service or what have you. I mean, goodness gracious, some of the projection and some of the goofy things that people would say, it's just over the top. So I mean,
it's weird. It's like I don't mind people being religious as long as
exactly,
they live their lives. I live my life. That's all I want.
Exactly. I don't get it. I don't see where there is this discrimination taking place. Okay, the only example I could think of where somebody made a comment that was, and it was just a comment, and it was the most stupid comment, was the Pulse nightclub shooting that took place in 2016. Somebody says the reason why that took place is because all these Christians that were sitting there preaching against the gays and all that. I was like, the person that did it was Muslim that did it, And again, that's not to demonize Muslim. We're talking about an individual Muslim that did that, just like individual Christians would do that. You got reactionaries in all faiths that would do this sort of thing. There are atheists who probably would do this. I mean, human civilizations are filled with assholes.
Oh yeah, they're like, everybody's an individual, and I think that's one of the most important lessons that my dad taught me, was just, you have to treat people as individuals. A group isn't a monolith, and we need to stop essentializing all groups.
Like, for example, when I get criticized with my pacifist views between Russia and Ukraine, the war, I get told by some of my liberal friends, yeah, but Putin discriminates against the LGBTQ people in Russia. And I said, yes, and I hate that about the Putin government. But you know what? They do that in the Ukraine too. And they do that in Romania. They do that in Hungary. They do that in Poland. It's an Eastern European thing. And in fact, in the Ukraine, the LGBTQ people are treated worse than they are in Russia.
Yeah, Eastern Europe's really bad for LGBT rights. Like, when I went to Lithuania to get my surgery, I didn't see one pride flag. Not one.
Estonia is probably the only country in Eastern Europe that's from the former bloc, Eastern
And
Bloc.
culturally, a lot of them will tell you they don't really feel Eastern European. Like culturally, it seems like they're more like the Finnish, maybe.
Yeah,
Which Finland
well,
is more North Europe.
yeah, but yeah, being part of the former Warsaw, but they were
Baltic,
part of the
yeah.
Soviet Union and all of that, Soviet Republic, and yeah, they're probably closer to the countries and the Scandinavian countries and Finland and all that in a lot of
Yeah.
ways culturally and all that. So, but um, getting back to the UK, I heard that he's like really transphobic, Keir Starmer.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and he just he flip-flops back and forth. Like you'll see him saying things that are lukewarm about trans people, and then he just goes back to saying hateful stuff again. I just don't trust him to, do the right thing for trans people. I just don't. I think that it's on people to put the government's feet to the fire and make sure that trans people have equal rights. Because like I don't understand why it's such a big deal. It's such a luxury belief to have transphobia, because there's people who are starving. There's people who have real issues going on. Like why are you so concerned about what someone identifies as?
Yeah. And when I found out about how transphobic the UK is, that was kind of sad to find that out, because even 20 years ago when I was in the UK, I saw them as a little more gay, lesbian friendly, and I didn't think in terms of transgenderism at the time, because the big issue back then was in the United States, should same-sex couples get married or not, and that was the big issue back then. And now look at it, I got some transgender friends, and and all they want is equality, and there's a saying I go by: equality is not a special right. So I am disappointed that Keir Starmer has that attitude. And I'm guessing it's in the manifesto.
I don't know where it comes from. I just don't know where. I mean, I don't know what people are being taught. I don't know if it's a religion thing. I don't know what it is. I'm sure for different people, it's different things. But it's just sad. And I wonder if, maybe if people just actually spoke to one another and, listened and understood each other, maybe these attitudes would lessen. I'm not sure.
Yeah. But anyway, thing about it is that, he's just not my cup of tea and everything. Now,
no, not at all.
Yeah. Now, Jeremy Corbyn, different story.
Love him.
Yeah, somebody I wish that was prime minister. I mean, he's so badass. When Julian Assange was in prison, he was still calling for the release of Julian Assange. Something that even Bernie Sanders did not do when he was running for president in the United States in 2019, 2020. It's something that he didn't even do. And there was Jeremy Corbyn, and they have done everything they could to slam his character. They have called him an anti-Semite, and he's not. No,
not at all. Like, it's weird how strong the Israel lobby is around the world. It's weird how it's gotten here too. Like with Labor, they did lose a lot of Muslim support, and I don't know why they're so pro-Israel. I'm guessing it's just because Israel has a lot of money. Palestine doesn't have as much money as Israel, so it always comes down to money. I don't think it's about religious group.
There is a history and all of that too. The group Labor Friends for Israel. I don't know when it was set up, but it was a labor government that partly allow Israel to exist in 1948 when all that was happening in Palestine and all that. And I've always said that they could have put the country elsewhere other than Palestine, but in a place where it would not, a place where there was hardly anybody in the population. There was no need to come in there, take a country from people that were living there already. But there was a worldwide guilt from World
Yeah,
War II, and that's what it came down
yeah.
to.
I
Well,
mean, I feel so complicated about it because I was born Jewish. I have family members from Israel, and I know of one of them. Their father was from Germany, and he came to Palestine. So because it wasn't Israel yet at that point, he came to Palestine during World War II. And if he didn't have that opportunity to go to Palestine, he would have died in the Holocaust because that's what happened to his parents.
yeah. And the thing about it is that something needed to be done in forms of reparations, but I overall think it was kind of a mistake to put build a new country on top of a country that
Oh
was,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's
And
just
that's
like
not.
I don't expect Jews to trust Europe anyway because a lot of the, like why would you trust a country that just let so many of your people die? Like no, I just couldn't. So I get why Jewish people all left pretty much, like there's very few people left in Eastern Europe who are Jewish. Very, very few.
But there was, I just think it was a mistake to create a new country on top of a country that was a place where there was already an existing population that was seemingly okay with the Jewish community that was living there to begin with. So,
Mm.
there needed to find a way to do this without creating the state of Israel and all that. So I think it was a mistake.
Yeah, I think Russia started like they tried to do a Jewish autonomous oblast in the Far East,
That's right, in
but
the
that
Soviet
went
Union.
nowhere.
Yeah, because there was sympathy in the Soviet Union for their own version of Zionism too,
Mm.
and that's also a forgotten history there too. Oblast, which is in Siberia.
Yeah, Far East. So I think it's near China.
That's correct. That is correct. They could have created an Israel there, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone was there, so I wouldn't see a problem with that. Although it'd be freezing over there. I mean,
it would have worked.
and probably the food. I don't know how good the food would be.
It would have probably worked for those who were Zionists who were also communists that wanted to fuse the two ideologies together and maybe could create another Soviet republic out of it.
That would
I
have
don't
been
know.
interesting. That
That
would
would
have
have
been
been,
really interesting.
yeah.
Definitely. I mean, like there were a lot of leftists in Israel Palestine at the beginning. There were. I mean, there was a whole like labor Zionist movement. There was a left wing Zionist movement.
Yeah,
Like
but
I had family members in that.
the right wing ended up dominating and all that, and and then back then
As
it
it
was
always happens.
the Stern Gang and the Irgun they were like the biggest problem even prior to the creation of the state. But anyway, getting back to Jeremy Corbyn, he's been badly
Mm.
badly smeared as an anti-Semite, and I don't see where there's anti-Semitism in him. I mean, criticizing Israel is not anti-Semitic, and
No, it isn't.
yes.
Like, and it's not any more than like criticizing the CCP as anti-Chinese. It's not anymore. No.
So yeah, and that's a weird thing right there. He's not. I mean, he's been a supporter of human rights across the board, and um, let me just answer this to make a clarification right here. What we were trying to say is that there should have been an alternative to Zionism. Miguel, just want to make that as a clarification. There should have been an alternative. We should try to
Like, I think religiously Jewish state, no, I'd be against that. But like
yeah.
culturally Jewish, oh no, I definitely support like culturally Jewish. Yes, definitely. I definitely would like to, still see a culturally Jewish state. Yes, but no religion aspects in government. I don't like religion and government to mix. No.
Certainly not in Palestine. Just is that just is that's proven it can't be, and Benjamin Netanyahu is definitely proof that it cannot exist, and that's the thing right there. And anyway, strangely enough, he's going to be responsible for the country being destroyed just to save his political career. So, but anyhow, getting back to Jeremy Corbyn, he's been basically demonized, and not just in the UK, here in the United States, there were people that were demonizing him too, and people were happy when Theresa May defeated him, and the only way he could have she could have a government was to reach out to the Democrat Unionist Party of Northern Ireland. And I heard a right-wing talk show host being glad that that's what she did. And his name is Mark Levin. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He's a horrible individual. Anyway, he basically said that he was glad that she reached out to the Democratic Unionist Party of Northern Ireland, which is anti-Catholic, anti-LGBTQ, and where you're anti-Catholic, anti-LGBTQ, there's anti-Semitism is certainly lurking around the corner there.
Oh, definitely. I mean, their ideologies don't seem that far from like the Ku Klux Klan.
And so, and here's the thing: even if it was true what they said about Jeremy Corbyn, fraternizing with anti-Catholic and anti-LGBTQ people equally as bad. So I mean, that's the mindset right there, and so that's just.
And it's not like they're anti, Catholic, like as in the religion. Like if it was just criticisms of religion, whatever. But no, they hate them as people, and that's the problem. Like I don't like hating people, hating systems. That's fine. Yeah, hate the system. That's what you should be hating.
Well, in Ian Paisley's case when he was alive, which is weird because he was I guess you're familiar with Ian Paisley, right?
Yeah, I've heard of him. It's the good news is that the DUP, they don't have any seats in Northern Ireland anymore.
Yeah, well, that's true. But yeah, he was a minister for the mainline Presbyterian Church, but he left them, and because he thought they had too much of a Roman influence. And so he formed the Free Presbyterian Church of Northern Ireland, which was a fundamentalist organization. But strangely enough, he and the clergy, when walking around, they were all dressed like vicars. I mean, you couldn't tell them apart from a Church of England priest or a Roman Catholic priest. They still dressed just like them, but they were still bashing the Catholic Church.
I don't even know the difference between the different types of Christianity, but then again, I was not raised Christian, so I have no idea.
Yeah, no, I mean there's differences and all that. So, but anyway, getting back to Jeremy Corbyn, the British military-industrial complex and the British press and the British right wing, and I would say even some turncoats inside the Labour Party, along with people in the United States, were wanting to bring down a Corbyn government if a Corbyn government would have taken place. And so
many such cases in America, like American history, it's just, if a socialist is on the rise, we better stop them. You either kill them or you thwart them in some way.
Yeah. Now, regarding 2019, when Boris Johnson defeated Jeremy Corbyn, when Jeremy Corbyn actually created a large opposition against Theresa May. But the beautiful thing about the defeat of Corbyn, there was one bright side to it. He scared Boris Johnson into putting more money into the public services to try to soften the blows of what was called Brexit at the time. So Britain's austerity was kind of was slowed down for a short while until Boris Johnson was forced to resign because of his scandals and all of that. And I guess it kind of went back to austerity. But Jeremy Corbyn played a serious positive role in Britain kind of returning back to being a functioning social democracy again, even as an opposition leader. And for that I am grateful. And again, I listened to him in speeches. Um, um, when I went to Washington D.C. to an Assange rally, I came back to the hotel room and was watching the news and saw an Assange speak. I mean, excuse me, I saw Corbyn speak. He was doing a speech in the UK at the time, and he made a passionate speech on behalf of a free press and free speech and everything like that. And I'm like, this is a wonderful man. Why do they hate him so damn much? Keir Starmer had him kicked out of the party, and he ran as an independent, and he was able to win. I am glad to see him win the election.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. So that was wonderful seeing that happen. And
I think it really shows that, labor needs us more than we need them.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe, now Ken Livingstone, who was the former mayor of London, was kicked out of the Labour Party, and he was allowed to come back in. And I was wondering maybe that might happen again with Corbyn. If that were to happen, I'm just wondering what that arrangement would be like, because I have a feeling that that he'll probably be working closely with Labor in a way that I guess Bernie worked with the Democrats. That's what I'm guessing. So I see Warren is online. I don't know if you remember Warren. Last time you were on the show.
Yes, I do remember him.
Yeah. Well, because we're about ready to talk about the next subject, and before we get to that next subject, and that next subject is George Galloway, I want to share you this video and get your reaction from it. All right. This is, and by the way, this is Warren you're about to watch in this short video.
Curious about our curriculum? Have something to say? Then call us now to join the debate on the mother of all talk shows, the only education you can get for free. George Galloway, the mother of all talk shows. With George Galloway, the world is our classroom, and you're welcome to sit in and join the seminar.
Thank you, Chris. As you know, I was watching the debate between Joseph Biden, the current president of the United States, and Donald Trump, both a bunch of braggart arseholes in their own right. But I digress. It was shameful to see the haggis, the murder of such an old, frail man. He looked like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons on a 3-day meth binge with special guest fentanyl. Everyone knows that this cuckoo or Cocoa Puffs piece of crap president is no good. Everyone knows that the former president, Donald J. Trump, is also bollocks, bloody shite. It's not the lesser of two evils, it's the lesser of two senilities. And everyone knows it's Wendy, like the song says, but not Wendy. Sometimes in the middle of the night, I have to get up because of incontinence. But at least I'm not the leader of the free world. I watched that debate on Thursday night and saw how Joe Biden and Donald Trump in a room full of nobody but two incompetent CNN propagandists. Hey lad, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Unfortunately. Now, as we get closer to November, I have to say, for once in my life, I am speechless, yet I am still talking. I don't know how that happens, but it's happening. right now, right here. Now, what will the Democrats do with this crypt keeper who seems to only function on opioids and wishful thinking? Who will replace Joe Biden as the sacrificial lamb in the Democratic Party to Donald Trump and his bulldozer? It wasn't even a debate. They looked like they were the plaintiff and the defendant on Judge Judy, a television program in America with a judge. Donald Trump could have walked in there petless, drinking Scotch whiskey with a hooker on his arm, and still would have won the debate over Sleepy Genocide Joe. They were declared their party's nominee, but they did not even secure the nomination yet. That is America. That is late stage capitalism. That's all I have to say about American politics. But I will say one thing in conclusion. It does make for a good diuretic. Now I am off to go take a crap. Enjoy your haggis and don't take the shite. Rochdale, you heard?
That was funny.
Yeah, that's Warren, and and he's got a new show right now every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's called Morning Extra. And he does a new show, and so just thought I'd let you know about that show, and
Nice.
and everything. That's just one. That was just a sketch from the show right there, and I thought he was. I thought his George Galloway impression was like totally. I think he nailed it with the impression.
I haven't seen him speak too much, but yeah, I thought the accent was funny, and it reminded me of the father from So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Because George Galloway just has he just has a way of expressing himself. Just. And he was kicked out of the Labour Party in 2003. I think it was Glasgow. He was the MP in Glasgow, and he was kicked out.
He's Scottish.
Yeah, he is Scottish, and but he ended up being an MP in Bethnal Green, which is a borough in London, and then Rothdale this past March, and he was defeated yesterday. So. Which, if they were going to go and elect him in March, I thought he would be reelected. I was fairly confident he'd be reelected, but he didn't lose by a whole lot. I think he came in second place to the Labour candidate.
I'm not sure why that ended up happening, but, I think there's just a lot of problems with him. I mean, there's so many deal breakers with him. Like, there's certain things that I think, oh yeah, he's right about that. But then, there's so many problems. Like, he's very anti-LGBT. He's, what else? Oh yeah, the whole thing with the Tate brothers, accepting money from them.
Now, he's kind of social. I mean, he's Roman Catholic, and I think that's probably where that comes from, somewhat. But here's the thing about him. I think he tries to be accepting, but he still has a little bit of I think he still has a little bit of the boomer conservatism that in him in a lot of ways. And but when he was trying to discuss trans rights, I think he was trying to be accepting, but he ended up sounding kind of reactionary. But it was kind of funny how he was saying it. He was like, if you want to identify as a man or a woman, who am I to say? If you want to identify yourself as a table, a shoe, or a chair, I mean, I was like, oh my God, that is so politically incorrect. Oh my.
That sounds like a grandpa, at a dinner party.
Yeah. I mean, it just kind of like, wow, So yeah, I think he's got a little bit of I think he's got a little bit of reconciling to do on some of these issues. But he's good on the anti-war thing, and he's good on public services to retain all of that. So and he was perceived as a threat to the establishment when he won that seat in Rothdale back I guess, was it in March, something like that. I think it was in March.
Yeah.
So but anyway, I do like the show though overall. The mother of all talk shows. Overall, I like what
I should definitely give it a listen, just so that way I know, I have a more informed opinion. Like, that's the thing. Like, I don't want people to go, "Oh, guilt by association," because that's bullcrap. No, I think it's good to watch things even if you don't agree with them.
Yeah, no, I got some disagreements with him, but yeah, as I said, yeah, he's been kind of a thorn on the side of the establishment in some ways and everything. He's sort of in some ways, I'm trying to. He's definitely different. I'll put it that way. So, but he did lose his seat, and the Workers' Party is a fairly new party that he's affiliated with, and so as I said, just interesting to see. I was thinking if he got reelected, and if Corbyn. I actually thought he was going to be reelected. I thought that Corbyn might have been in danger of losing, but it turned out to be the other way around. So there is that. But I was just thinking maybe they could collaborate and do a new party possibly out of this, because maybe it's time for the British left to look into creating an actual new party out of the ruins of what was the Labour Party at one time. I think, just like you, I would have probably voted for the Green Party yesterday.
Yeah, that's what I did. I mean, I'm in a safe Labour seat, so it does not matter.
Now, how is your Labour MP, and what's the name of your Labour MP?
I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce her name right, but Taiwo Owatemi, I think is her name. And I don't think she's the worst, but there's like the thing that really was a deal breaker for me was just abstaining on any votes like for a ceasefire. Like, she just abstained, and I was like, there's just a lack of courage there, and I don't want to vote for someone that can't take a stance on something that's so common sense.
Yeah, I don't understand how people could be opposed to a ceasefire. I don't. I mean, I just don't understand how you could oppose a ceasefire, and how people can't call what's going on.
Like, I understand people saying there's nuance with Israel and Palestine, sure, but like a ceasefire, that's common sense.
There's nuance everywhere, but there's no excuse to oppose a ceasefire. And of course, when I say ceasefire, it needs to be a permanent ceasefire. But
yes,
not a humanitarian pause, but a ceasefire. Yeah. Do you ever? I know this is.
I just didn't like the lack of courage there, and I don't want to reward that.
Yeah, I know this is taking place in America, but do you see last year Aaron Mattei confronting Senator Coons? I think that's his name, from Delaware, on the train. Oh, that was classic, because Aaron Mattei basically was asking him a question, and Senator Coons just looks like a human thumb. His face looks like a thumb that has a face on it, and he was such a piece of shit to Aaron Mattei. He had him thrown off the train for politely asking him questions. Why can't you support a ceasefire? Why can't you? And he acted like that basic question was like the most annoying question around. And he was filming him doing that, and then he put it on Twitter, and he found out about it, and he made the conductor throw him off the train in Philadelphia. So anyway, But you can't, a ceasefire is because you're going to get triggered by somebody asking you for a ceasefire. So, are you there? Hello? Hello? It might. Well, she's across the ocean, folks. Oh, okay. That's what it is. We have a communication thing. She may be back in a moment. Anyway, I will probably cut this a little short. I'll stick around for a few moments until she gets back. If not, I will probably cut this short here. But I will talk to everybody here on the chat line real quick and all that. And so, Miguel, how are you doing today? I'm doing fine. Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Yo, old school Pete. I remember Blair coming into power. He's the politician who taught me they're scum. Oh, and yeah, well, agreed. Let's see, sex shops shouldn't be outside churches. Well, I would say they shouldn't be inside church unless the church has no problem with it. Let's see here. All right. The Willie Bragg Show. Let's see. When the Islamo left show a slow, would the Islamo left allow the dildo shots across from a mosque? I don't know if they're left, but I wouldn't have a problem with it being shown across the street from a mosque anymore, or any less from a church. The profile pic, okay. Kitty says, Extra Bulla, how are you doing, Warren? 16-year-olds or 5-year-olds out of primary schools here in the UK. That's stupid. Okay. Raising the voting age is another form of gerrymandering. And that is true. That is very, very, very true. I'm very much opposed to raising the voting age. That's the rebel thing, true. But it's better than having useless hippie parents with no real standards to rebel against. Context. Nice Mean Girl reference. Okay. The extra bull, two cheeks of the same asshole. Let's see. What's the mixed bisexual? I was at a poll tax protest with my dad. That was some history there, I'm sure. All right. Poll tax is another gerrymandering operation. I think it is. They made us in her Scotland pay for us. Old boy went happy. Obama's charm was his wolf clothing. And you meant sheep's clothing. Moved to Siberia, a colonizer mindset. That misunderstanding there. There should not be a Jewish state as an abomination. I would actually say there shouldn't be a state at all anywhere. But I'm anti-auntie. How you doing, Desert Mantis? Hi, Willie, Angie, Warren, Miguel, Johnny, Desert, and Daniel. Hello, Snipe Hunter. And everybody's saying their hellos back and all that good stuff. All right. Obviously, I'm just killing time until she possibly gets back. She's in England, of course. Desert Mantis, rearranged and smeared tints. You're very welcome. Keir Starmer, a star trooper, reminds me of Richard Spencer. He does have a Richard Spencer look. I have become a total George Galloway stan. George Galloway, very, very interesting animated character. Angie, I totally love the Americans deciding which movie to watch for the next 4 years meme. You nailed it. Let's see. Sorry for the internet cutout. Oh, that's okay. Not a problem. Not a problem. Oh, okay. You're back, but you're on. Okay, that's not a problem, Angie. That's not a problem. Let's see. It's getting quite late here in England, so I need to go to bed. That's not a problem, Angie. I appreciate you being on the show, and we'll, we'll have you back in the future. And I'll place all your, between now and I got to go to work in a little bit. So if I don't do it tonight, I'll do it by tomorrow. I'll have your information out on the description box. So let's see what we got here. As always, it's been great being on the show. Thank you so much for having me on. And that is, no, the pleasure is all mine. Always, always. And y'all, I'm going to put down her information on the description box too. So you follow her blog, follow her on YouTube, follow her on Twitter. She's got great things to say there. So just one last plug for my book, Crime of the Century. Absolutely. And y'all go ahead and y'all go ahead and get her book, and I'll go ahead and put that information up there in just a moment. Thank you. No problem. Okay. So there you have it, folks. Let me go ahead and do that real quick. Okay. Let me do this. All right. And do this right here. Oops. Okay. Once again, this is her blog. It's called The Diversity of Classic Rock. As Angie Moon. And she has all her information there. Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest. I don't know what that other icon is, but and talks about, it gives her all her reviews on various issues and articles and all that, and if we scroll on down, I guess we'll see the links to her book. Let me do that. Let's see. All right, let's see. That shows right here. All right. I'll tell you what. I know where we can get that other link. Okay, let me do this real quick, and of course I'll put the information down on the description box here. So let me do that. Here's the information where you can buy her book. I bought 2 copies recently. By Crime of the Century, and gives you all the information here how you can buy her book and all of that, and of course I'll be putting all that up there online and how you can go about it and everything. So there you go. And let me do this here. If you like what you heard, please press like and comment. Comment any way if you disagree with what I have to say. We'll have a conversation. Feel free to share the content on this channel. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it, because we are, in fact, the muckrakers of our time. Obviously, go ahead and subscribe to the Willie Bragg Show on my various platforms. You know what they are. And reject corporate media. And remember to pardon Julian Assange. Now that he's free, let's make sure that he's also pardoned. So pardon Julian Assange, free Palestine, free healthcare for all, and free speech. Absolutism. No question about it. Y'all take care. I have to go and eat, and then I have to go to work. Y'all have a good one. Bye-bye.